Are you ready to get woke? Welcome to the Woke as podcast with your host, Alex Lazarev.
All right, so here we are again. So it's been like 3 years since we did one of these on the Sasha Dating podcast.
I think so.
3 years.
Yeah, about 3 years.
Has it been an interesting 3 years?
Oh, yes. What about you?
It's been insane. It's been completely insane. So I guess let's start at the beginning. That's a good place to start.
Always a good idea.
It's a good place to start.
Do you want to introduce me to the guys who don't know me or don't remember?
Well, that's what I'm about to. That's what I'm about to do. Well, the people who know you, they're just going to be like, "It's Jane." Of course, we know. But for the new people, I'll tell a little story. So, and by the way, this is only our second one with a video, our second ever podcast with a video. So we're upgraded. You can see I've got bare feet. So we're still not fully professional, but we do have a good camera. And now these clip-on mics that are good, dual mics. It should be good. So I was basically hanging out with Marcus, who was having this epic meltdown. It was the greatest meltdown. He was telling me crazy stories. He'd had some brutal times on ayahuasca, which I've had also. But he was having crazy stuff because with my bad ayahuasca experiences, they were limited to during the trips. You know, I would have a really bad time and then eventually get out of it. And yes, there was some level of trauma afterwards, which I dealt with. But I wouldn't get what Marcus was getting, which was he would be on a bus. He was telling me some story. He'd be on a bus just minding his business, and then he would go into going back into a trip.
Realities and demons.
Yeah, crazy shit going on. I'm like, well, you're on a bus in London, and it's going crazy. So that's got to be really scary. That's got to be really scary. So he was basically going through like dark night of the soul experiences.
Yeah. He said.
If anyone doesn't know Marcus, a good buddy of mine. Who I've been working with for years and is also on the path, and he's exorcist by bloodline, but he found that out later.
Yes.
But he was going through this really brutal stuff, and I couldn't believe it. And I'm listening to him, and I'm like, dude, this is like, horrible. And eventually, months go by, and he was working on his stuff, and I was working on my stuff, and he was okay. I met up with him again. He was doing a lot better, and he said, oh, I got some help, and it turns out my crown chakra had been blown open, and therefore I was open to all the stuff going on, and this woman helped me patch it up, and now I'm okay. And he was much better. And I was like, well, who is this woman, and where did she come from? And he said, well, actually, I think he just Googled you, right? I think he just literally went online and like, I don't even know what he searched for. Fill us in. How did he actually find you?
One of his trainers was a student of mine.
Okay.
And he obviously liked Marcus a lot, as everyone does. And so seeing what was happening, he said to Marcus, hey, how about I introduce you to Jay, because she does exactly this stuff. So she helps people who have fallen on the hard times, because right now, the self-development in general, what they do, they lead you to a certain point and then nothing. Then they just leave you there. So if you have problems, or if you're stuck, or if you're in pain, that's your problem. And I help people from that moment, from awakening onwards. So he said, oh, meet Jane. And so I met him and found that, yes, his crown chakra or mind gate was too open, actually torn open, and this is why he had those horrible experiences. For those who don't know, if your crown chakra is too open, you essentially will keep tripping and falling out of the normal existence for no apparent reason. So you could be just on the bus or minding your business, just walking down the street, and suddenly you see all the realities and spirits and everything around you, and you just can't escape. So that's what he was dealing with. And he also, from what I remember, he also had an entity on him, because ayahuasca trips, this is what they don't tell you, but quite often people come back from those ayahuasca trips with entities attached to them, because back in the old times when shamans did that, they were obviously trained and they knew what they were doing, so they would go there and they knew how to keep themselves safe. Whereas these people these days, they're just civilians. They know nothing. They don't know anything about spiritual or energy self-defense. So they go there and entities think, oh guys, free meal has just arrived, let's go. So Yeah, I know, sounds horrible, but many people come back with some nasty attachment, which then saps their energy, gives them sleepless nights, horrible suicidal thoughts, and so on and so on. So we had to deal with his crown mind gate, we had to fix it, we had to get rid of the entity, and this is how he got back to normal, and actually now is doing better than normal.
Normal. None of us are ever normal, but not in
normal
the pit of hell.
As in,
not suicidal.
State.
Not dark night of the soul.
Yes.
Freaking out.
Yeah, this normal, not human normal. No. Never
human normal. No.
Never hang out with humans.
No humans. So to continue how I met you story. So I found out about this lady, and eventually, of course, we ended up meeting and hanging out and all this stuff, and had some interesting.
In Japan, in Tokyo.
Is that where we met
places?
The first time, though? Is
yes.
that right?
Yes, it is right.
Wow.
Remember the Japanese hotel with tatami? The meeting room?
I think so.
This is where, Marcus said, remember, we could use that meeting room with tatami for free, and we just hang out there.
Well, of course we'd meet there for free. That would be the first priority for Marcus. Is it free? Yes, we can meet there.
Yes. And that shrine with a waterfall.
Well, there was many places in Japan that were everywhere's beautiful in Japan. Remember that beautiful place in Japan? Yes.
Well, there we go. Easy to remember.
So we did meet, and then we ended up. Yeah. So this is basically the story. So basically, we ended up kind of becoming friends and having interesting chats. And then one time, I invited you over to a friend's house, and we wanted to just for fun. We thought we would do a little bit of spiritual woo-woo, and I thought you'd show us a little bit of stuff that you do. And so we did. We were doing. You were just showing us just basic stuff, like energy, just moving energy a little bit, stuff like that. Then we went upstairs, and you did one exercise with us, where and it was just a small group of friends, like 5-6 people.
Seeing the auras.
Yeah, and you did an exercise where you were like, okay, you can see people, you can see auras of people, and we're all gonna. So you go into like a room that's a little bit darker, and then you just naturally kind of look at someone and just see if you can see the aura. And some people, very quickly see, and other people not. I struggle with that one myself, though I'm very good with energy. Energy is super. I can just come up to people and move things, and very easy. But seeing auras is not my thing, so far. And so you were looking at me for a second. I remember you looked at me and you just said, you have like a little alien head thingy sort of floating over your left shoulder, and it's like draining your energy. And I was like, what? And you're like, yeah, you've got this thing there. And then you asked the other people, I'm like, everybody check out Sasha and just look at him for a second. Is anyone? And a couple of the people were like, oh yeah, you have this thing kind of floating there. And I was like, freaking me out. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And so I remember that happening, and then me going to Japan afterwards, because I was super weak in Japan and still had the entity.
The other way around. The first time we met, the reason why we met, because Marcus said, a friend of mine is in Tokyo, and he has obviously some astral interference. Let's meet and chat. Remember?
Okay.
The first time around, you said, well, I just don't understand why, but I keep getting my energy drained all the time, and I feel horrible all the time, even though I take supplements and I'm doing all the healthy stuff and nothing helps. And then a few months later, when we met in London, and I did this little training, this impromptu training, we've discovered the cause of why you were drained all the time.
But did you not spot it in Japan? Or you?
No, because we were just chatting. We weren't looking at each other properly, and the room was really bright as well. And remember, I was saying, "Oh, maybe it was that, maybe it was that," and you said, "No, I couldn't be this and couldn't be that." And your energy did feel really strange, but we should have just looked at you, both me and Marcus. We just didn't, but it then happened a couple of months later.
It happened eventually, yeah. So basically, after you spotted it, then. Shortly after, Marcus did he worked his magic and he took it off, and then I've told that story other places, but basically, after having it removed, my energy level shot up so much immediately that I was like literally jumping up and down, doing cartwheels, doing push-ups. Like I couldn't even sit and have a conversation.
Yeah, I remember.
Because I had so much energy, I had to run. Or jump. I was doing these moves where I'm jumping up and, you jump in the air and you bring your knees up.
Yes.
I was doing 25 of those at a pop, sitting down for 3-4 minutes having a chat. Oh, sorry. Jumping around. It was crazy. And it was such a shift. I remember thinking, if this is my normal level of energy, I'm not going to be able to function in society. They're going to have to lock me away because I'll just be like, this guy's just running around all the time doing push-ups. Can you imagine? You're just in a bookshop, looking at a book. Oh, hang on a second. How much is this one? £4.99. Wait, so I'm saying, just do 25. Yeah, I've got. Do you take cash? Here we go. Like, like it doesn't. It would be insane. That was what was happening. No, like for real, that was what was happening. But fortunately, after I went to sleep, I woke up and I just felt normal, and then I never had any problems after that. That was the end of that. And so, and it's interesting. I had done an ayahuasca ceremony maybe a year or so before I met you, somewhere a year before, and the shaman was kind of attacking me. He really didn't like me, like verbally. Like the next day after, he was saying like, oh, he didn't like me, and he thought I had something. He actually said he thought I had something. And then another time, I had a woman she was doing this session on me where she actually talks to you, and she gets you to release any attachments that you have. And she basically, we figured out that that I had this strong one, and it looked like I got it from ayahuasca. We were asking where it came from. So I think I might have picked this up in one of the earlier ayahuasca ceremonies I did, and had it for quite some time as I was getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And anyway, so that's a sidetrack. But yeah, so it's even if just that was your job, just going around and checking people out and saying, yep, you've definitely got something, you need to get that checked out. You've got 2, and you're a mess. You need to really, even if that was just that's quite a big deal.
Definitely.
That's quite a big deal, because if it wasn't you spawning it, I mean, I was so weak that I could barely walk around. I was done. If I'd walk around for 2 hours, I was like 33 years old or something. I was exhausted. I couldn't walk around. I was done. So it's really.
Marcus was like that as well at one point.
It's crazy, and it's crazy that we're not taught any of this stuff whatsoever.
I know, right?
I mean, this should be like grade, like basic. Okay, so you're sick or anything's going on, check for anything, any attachments that are not earthbound problems, because I wonder what percentage. I mean, if you had to guess, right, of 100 people that there's some problem, they don't know what it is, but they have some issue, some health problems. Out of 100 people, how many cases it's not just you need more vitamins, or you're eating shitty, or you need to exercise more, or yes, you have you're getting sick, or something completely extra. I don't know, what would the word be? Extra earthly, like not earth.
Extraterrestrial.
Not extra. Well, extraterrestrial means kind of has a different meaning.
Just astral.
Astral. Yeah. Something. Let's just say astral. Like, what do you think? 20 people out of 100, 30, 10?
I would actually risk guessing as much as 80%.
No, shut up.
Because many of the so-called mental diseases are, in my opinion, misdiagnosed. And the reason why I'm saying that, because I can see people, and I keep seeing people who had an apparent mental disease. As soon as the entity is removed, the disease goes like that straight away, which is not possible if it were an actual disease. Because imagine if there is something wrong with the physical body, then you can't just click your fingers and make it go away just like that. So if that goes away with no further treatment, and the person just comes back to normal straight away. And again, by normal, I mean the state of healthy equilibrium, because right now, and it's really, really sad, and people should know about it, right now, because of the paradigm of the society saying that, oh no, only the physical stuff is real. And
3D, nothing weird is going on. There's nothing extraordinary at all. Nothing. Zero.
Right.
Zero.
And
everything is fine.
What it does, it gives the entities an upper hand, because back in, like, many centuries back, when people knew about them, they also knew how to protect them and how to discover them straight away. So, for example, I will give you the easiest symptoms. If all of a sudden your vision becomes blurry for no apparent reason, you feel like there is some heavy weight on your head or some pressure inside your head, and it's not a headache, it feels like an actual heavy load, and you start having really weird thoughts and ideas that are not yours, and you realize that you would never think about it. You would never be normally suicidal, or you would never think nasty things about other people. Actually, one of my students said he thanked me for saving his life as well, because he was attacked by an entity, and that entity was driving him suicidal, and he realized the last moment he was actually going to hang himself, and he realized it wasn't him, it was an entity, and he got rid of it. He fought it off. There are ways of fighting it off, and he lives. and like yourself, like many other people. So because now we're made to believe that there are no entities, they just run riot because it's so handy, right? So you have lots of victims, completely unprotected, unaware of your existence. You can do whatever you like to them, and it's even worse because I think, okay, I don't want any conspiracy theories, but when you think about it,
I like conspiracy theories. Bring them on, girl.
Well, you think about it. So right now, as far as I know, according to the statistics, mental diseases have overcome in popularity or notoriety all other things that can be wrong with people, and this just shows you how much exposed we are. It also, our lifestyle contributes to it. The way our cities are built is completely wrong. I mean, our cities are completely full of satanic architecture. By satanic architecture, I mean the architecture that weakens you energetically and attracts entities. Our mass media glorify the dark forces. So everything in our cities are so dirty. I think when you think that the medieval cities reeked of stench, then our cities reek of astral stench, and it attracts entities. And as I said, for the first time in history, or at least in the recorded history, they say that the mental diseases have overcome anything that is known normally, like strokes. And what is interesting, as soon as someone starts feeling things like derealization and depersonalization and suicidal thoughts, depression for no apparent reason whatsoever, like really horrible depression, but you can't even think where it came from, what do? They Google those symptoms, they self-diagnose themselves with some sort of a mental disease, because Google will be very helpful, saying, oh, hey, you've got schizophrenia, for example. I think this is what they told Marcus. Oh, you've got schizophrenia. And so that person goes to a doctor, describes their symptoms, and the doctor goes, well, there are some drugs that can help you with that for the rest of your life. And I'm not saying, there are some perfectly good doctors that want to help people, but they just don't know any better. Or maybe there are also some doctors who are just really happy to have more and more paying patients. So I think there are certain forces perhaps that find this state of affairs really handy, because the more people are suicidal, weak, depressed, and generally down, the more the easier it is to influence them, to keep them under control, to keep prescribing them drugs, which is obviously a profit. So it's a nasty dark side to it, and it's just my logical mind that sees those links. I don't know whether they're true, but I can see how they could be true, if you see what I mean.
No, they're pretty much true. I've looked into it.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
So we are a society of essentially manufactured victims, because we were made to forget how to stand for ourselves, how to develop ourselves, and what to do once you are an awakened soul, so to speak. And you need to become a warrior, but how to even become a warrior? You can't really find, you can find me, but if you don't find me, then it's pretty difficult to even find a path to awakening, because, as you know, there is just so much fluff out there.
So for anyone listening to this and they want to find out if they haven't any, so you've given some of the symptoms.
Those are the main ones.
Is there one exercise someone can do if they're sure they have something and they don't have any money, they can't get any training, they can't get any help, but something they could do themselves that would annoy the entity enough to maybe they could get rid of it? What could they do?
Absolutely. There are several things that they can do. I actually have a video, entity removal DIY, but I will repeat it here. So firstly, if you suspect that you have an entity, take a shower. And I know it sounds strange, but they dislike water. They actively dislike water. So take a shower, and while taking a shower, imagine that this shower is cleansing you energetically as well as physically. Get yourself some sage, and it's going to sound like, oh god, fairy tales from the medieval times, but those guys knew what they were doing. They literally knew what they were doing. So entities hate the smell of sage, for example, and garlic. Funnily enough, they can't stand that. If you have problems sleeping, sleep with a little night lamp on. because light disturbs them. So they usually become stronger and they tend to attack more at night. But if you have a little light, then it's going to make it harder for them. Again, another thing is to play music, because music is vibrations, and because entities are vibrations, if you play things like Gregorian chants, you don't need to be religious, it's just this kind of music that disturbs them. So it doesn't matter what God you follow or you don't follow. If you play Christian church music, Gregorian chants, it's going to actually help you bring that entity down. So what we're doing here is, target hardening. So a person who doesn't know how to defend themselves is a soft target.
Oh, yeah.
And entities, just like any...
They go for the easy stuff.
Yeah, they would go for a soft target, right? Rather than a hard target. So if they see that you're fighting back, they're likely to leave you, because they will like, you know what, this guy is just too much trouble. There is another one just down the road who knows nothing.
Right.
And another thing, there are also more advanced methods. If you know anything about energy self-defense, then by all means use your astral weapons. There is also a meditation that you can do. However, you need to know how to do visualization for that. And if you do, you can use it. So what do? You sit on the floor or you sit on the chair and you surround yourself with a really thick, heavy layer of energy. I'm talking heavy, but obviously, we are visualizing that it's heavy. And this heavy fabric goes all around you, right down to the floor, and it spreads around you on the floor. And the entities will stay above that fabric. Now, imagine that you're soaking that fabric in some inflammable liquid. So it can be petrol, it can be clear spirit, anything you'll fancy. But the fabric is too thick for that liquid to go all the way through. So the top of it gets wet, but inside you're nice and dry. So visualize that. And as you've soaked the fabric right to the bottom, imagine that you visualize that you set fire to the borders of it. So from the edges, the fire goes up really quickly. Imagine in real life, if you pour petrol on something and set it on fire, the fire will go up really quickly. And what you need to do, when it goes up, lift the corners of the fabric and join them above your head in a sort of a container with the entities trapped inside. And shrink this container while raising the temperature inside it at the same time. So you do that, and you create maybe a ping pong ball kind of size, and then you throw it with your mind right to the middle of the earth, where there is lots of fire and really hot temperature and really hot pressure. So make sure in your mind that it goes right there and it closes and it's all done. So if you know how to do it, if you know how to meditate, if you know how to visualize, it's going to be a really, really good help. If the entity is stronger than you can handle, look for someone who will help you. It's actually safer to go and find a specialist, to go and find an exorcist, than meddle with it yourself, because, well, if you're lucky enough, that technique I just described works perfectly on smaller entities. It just removes them straight away. If it's something big and nasty like what you had, annoying it is not a good idea.
I would, if you got a big one, I recommend professional help for sure. But oftentimes, like if I go to a new area, like a new room, I'll always clean the space.
Yeah.
But I also use prayer. I find works. In fact, I had an incident just recently, maybe 5-6 weeks ago, whenever it was. I was coming back from a festival, and I was staying just one night in an apartment in Madrid, and it was horrible, the energy. I mean, it was horrible. I walked in, and the way I always know is you try and fall asleep and you just wake up and you can't fall asleep. It seems like they always target you. I'm very sensitive to it. And I couldn't find a lighter, even though I always have either sage or Palo Santo, amazing stuff. I couldn't have a lighter, and I thought, well, fuck it. I said, everything is intention anyway, and I just prayed like really hard. I just said, completely 100% universe, I need to sleep. I call all my guardians, my higher self. I call everyone I could think of, spirit of the north, south, west, east consciousness. come down and obliterate this room with light and remove any and all non-beneficial entities, and anything left anywhere near me is going to be only, love and light and anything good. And as soon as I asked for it, I literally felt my heart expand, and I felt a sense of calmness and peace. That was it. I knew it was done. I felt it. I felt a huge shift, and I was like, oh, good. And then I felt much, much better. And then my friend woke up and had a lighter, so I was like, oh, fuck it. And then I put the pulse on, and then I slept like a baby, just out.
Yes.
But before that, I could not. So prayer, and what I found with prayer is, because I think people have wrong ideas about prayer, because everybody...
Prayer is amazing.
It's amazing.
Providing that you know how to do it, not everyone does.
Yeah, well, the problem is if you ignore spirituality or God your whole life and you do nothing and you just ask for favors when you're desperate, not as good as always being in alignment, but that's a whole other podcast. But
25 minutes.
25, you said 25 minutes is the magical time? Oh, yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, pray for 25 minutes, you're not doing it long enough. No, it's our timer. But what I found is if you are very, very, like whenever I ask something and I have really strong intention, like I'm really serious, then it works. Then I get my answers for questions. But if I'm just kind of like, dibble dabbling, no. So really, really, like really come from a place of like knowing that you are the one that is granting your own request. You are your higher self. It's you. You're just another aspect of it. So it's not like you're asking some outside source. You're everything anyway, and including, I guess, the entity is also on some level part of ourself also, because everything is consciousness. Everything is.
Yes, it's not as
right now.
Clear. Yeah, not quite. And actually, there is an algorithm to prayer that I can share if you like.
Do it. So before you go into that, I just wanted to say, when you're visualizing the water coming down, it's golden white light. I've heard that's the best. Imagining if you're in the shower, you imagine golden white light coming down.
That's the easiest.
That's the easiest, right? And then it's pouring everything away. Hot or cold water doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
They don't care. I mean, cold water is obviously more invigorating. So if you're low on energy, contrasting shower will help. But it doesn't matter. You don't need to be a Wim Hof.
Okay, good.
Unless you want to. And prayer, yes. I use another two things. If you're really, really stuck and you are in a place where you can't really even move too much, what you can do, you can use mantras. Mm-hmm. And you can use prayers. Mantras are probably the easiest because even if you don't know how to use them, if you do them with sincerity, it's going to help. So one of the best ones I've discovered that helped me every time is a Sanskrit mantra, Aham Prakashat Haman. Okay. It's on my YouTube. So anyone who needs it can find it there and chat along. And very easy to say as well. Now, with prayer, it's actually really interesting because most people don't know how to pray, and most people got implanted subconscious resistance towards prayer because right now with that attack on religion and creed and faith in general, and I'm not talking about the institution of religion, it's a different thing. I'm talking about faith that dwells in your heart, that has nothing to do with anything external whatsoever. But people mix the two. So they, many of them, they don't even think of praying. And so it's important to understand on the conscious level that the faith that you have is between you and the universe. And no matter what religions are out there, nobody can interfere because it's sacred and it's personal just to you. Now, the way to pray, to be able to get your prayers granted or manifested, is actually what you described. So, firstly, you need to have faith. Because if you don't have faith, nothing happens. And by faith, I mean a state of mind where you know that you are one with that energy of light or God, whatever you call it. You have to know for fact that it will answer. And it will, because energy follows thought, right? So it's only logical that if you send out a request, it will answer. But you have to first be able to believe in it to make it happen. So first you need to have faith. And then when you're praying, as you're sending out your request, whatever it may be, so it could be, this is how people actually get themselves cured on the physical level. So send out your request. to the universe, to the light. I usually use the light because it's the source of all things. So send your request to the light or to the God. And with that, imagine straight away what it would feel like if your request were granted. In other words, create a mental image in your mind of that whatever you're asking for being granted and being completed, being done. So in your case, you asked for the room to be clean, nice, safe, and ancestors were gone. So you had this idea of what you want to achieve. So it's not just enough to keep going, oh, give. You have to imagine what it would feel like and what it would look like when it's done. And feel grateful because it's done, it's granted. Because the light is always there. I mean, we are submerged in a sea of energy, in the energy of God. So it's always there. It always listens to us. It listens to us right now. It knows where you are. It knows where you live. So
shut up! You're freaking me out.
So energy follows thought. So know for sure that if you send a request with an open heart, with all sincerity, so you have to be really, really humble. You have to say, yes, please, I do need help. Please come and help me. And imagine what it would feel like when your request is granted and you're done. And this is how you pray.
I felt when I was in my deep meditations in Ecuador, and there was some pretty cool stuff going on, I knew that it's very important also, whatever you're asking for, to ask as long as it doesn't harm any other beings in the universe. So if I want whatever I'm after, I say, okay, I really want to buy, or I want to somehow manifest whatever it is, a new house or a new job, whatever it is. So let's say you're trying to get a new job. I'd really love to, I'd be so happy if I got this new job, but as long as it doesn't interfere with anyone else's happiness or joy, as long as it doesn't fuck over anyone else in the universe, I would like this to happen. And every time I come out with that energy, things would happen. And it's like, and it makes perfect sense. You are the universe, so there's no reason you wouldn't get your wish granted unless it would actually harm another being, or it would harm you and you don't even know it. Actually, there's a greater job for you over here that's 10 times more perfect for you. Exactly. You have to wait 6 months to get it, or a year. Well, you can't get the other one because it's not for you. Exactly. So sometimes that's why people think, oh, well, prayer doesn't work. No, it doesn't work because you're not asking for the right thing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we're so confused, we don't even know what is good for us and what isn't. So we think we want one thing, actually could be completely different from actually what would be perfect for us. Absolutely. So a lot of prayer is actually figuring out what you need, because the universe is really good at getting you what you need, not what you think you want. Mm-hmm. And that's what I realized. So everybody, I want this and I'm not getting it. Yeah, but you don't need that. You need this. You need something completely different than what you want. Exactly. I want $1 million. But actually, no, you need to learn to love yourself so you're complete without money. Then probably you can get $1 million. But not before you love yourself. So the universe is going to keep putting you in situations where you're forced to love and accept yourself. Yeah. Even though you're in your mind, you're like, no, if I just had the money, I'd be happy. No, the universe is a little bit smarter than you. Sorry, but all that is a little bit more intelligent than you. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, okay? So it's a very interesting point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, getting back, so that was the crazy story of how I met and all this kind of stuff. Now, how did you? And this is what's interesting. How did you even? Because you're kind of like a magical creature. You have magical powers, and you're teaching.
Someone called me a real life Jedi.
You are. I mean, you are. I think we all are. To be honest, I think many of us have the potential to be that, but we're just not tapping into it, and we're not given any of that information for us to pursue these kind of, and I wouldn't even say they're necessarily, it is higher in a way, but it's just different. It's just another area of knowledge outside of Newtonian 3D. Okay, the physical reality, there's gravity, the sun is there, this is all normal, but what about all the other dimensions
metaphysics?
We're not, it's all, no, don't worry about that. It's like, what?
And we have thousands and thousands of proofs around the world that it works, that
of course, there's
and they're like, just ignore that. Ignore all the
everything.
Evidence.
Ignore everything. So how did you get into this? Because you're basically a professional. You're a professional in this area. This is what this. You just wrote a book that's exploring a lot of this stuff, and you help people with entity room and all this other craziness. So how did you even get into all of this world? Because there's more and more people in it now, but still, nothing compared to like dentists, you know,
Yeah.
or lawyers or whatever. And obviously, I think this is much more important than lawyers, for example. So how was it? How did you know that you were different and this was your path? You know.
Sure. So.
You weirdo.
Obviously, always. So that story started about 2,300 years ago in the place that is now called Mesopotamia. I was one of the people there.
You don't often hear that on a podcast. That story started 2,300 years ago. Not often. On the Locust podcast, no one's flinching. But anywhere else, it would be weird. Go on.
Well, if I didn't include that, I would be not honest with you. So I thought, I'll tell you the truth. It happened just over 2,000 years ago. I lived in a place which is, which no longer exists actually, because we were based between Media and Babylonia. It was that long time ago. And Media in particular was known for their magical training. They were very famous for training people in extended perception and magic and combat magic as well. So I was one of those people who we were like the Assassin's Creed, but only we used magic. I mean, we did have weapons. Everyone had weapons back then, otherwise you wouldn't have survived. But many of the things that we needed to do, we were doing through the so-called magical means, bending reality with the power of our mind. And being a part of that group had taught me a lot. I was great. And so since then, mind you, some of the incarnations, I didn't remember it, but with this one, I essentially decided to pick up where I've left off, and I've been always using my knowledge that I had back then. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of every extended self-development training, because everything you know about magic, everything you learn about the power of your mind stays with you. So obviously at one point you will have to leave your body behind, your mind behind, and all that, but as you come back as a new person, I mean, just not a new person so much, but just giving a different outfit, you will remember. And the strength that you've acquired will stay with you. So it's amazing. It's the best investment ever. So I decided to use my knowledge to help others. Increasingly so, because I looked around and I've realized that the need of our times, the time structure itself is changing right now, and I think many people can sense it. Many people say, time is actually faster and it feels different than it was, let's say, even 20 years ago. And so what I've noticed is that many people are called to be awakened, and many people are called to discover their power. And it actually, once you wake up, it feels terrible not to use your power. It feels suffocating. You need it. It's almost like suddenly wearing shoes or clothes that are not your size. It's just horrible. And most people don't know how to use it and what to even do with it. And I've noticed that this need, obviously, that demand, created a whole bunch of people who were there for, I'm sorry to say that, but the wrong reasons. They knew little, nothing, they had huge egos, and they had a huge desire to rip people off. And I'm not saying it's everyone. Obviously there are some genuine people, and there are some genuine people, but it's a minority. And the majority of those were just like, ooh, that's a new market and I can rip them off. Sweet. And they didn't offer much to those people, and they actually maimed them in a way through their so-called teachings. And so I decided to step forward and to do something about it. That's my reason, because I've been a researcher of all the mystical arts. Well, obviously back then, but also in this life. Well, you've seen my library throughout the years, and I've spent, let me think, over 20 years probably now researching and trying and testing and keeping only what works. So I know that my techniques save lives, and I know that my techniques make people stronger because I can see a clear before and after. And because I don't see many people offering just that, I had to step forward, which took me a few years because naturally I'm an introvert naturally, so I don't naturally just go and talk to people. I can if I want to, because I've trained my mind to do absolutely anything I need to do, but you know, it wasn't my nature. But also I realized that so many people need to know this. So many people need to know this, and there are not enough people, just as you said, there are not enough people teaching it. And we need to save those people because, you know, apart from entities, not being able to live your purpose, especially after you've woken up, is so depressing that it drives some people, sleeping stars, to suicide. And it's just too many of them are being taken down before they can even realize their power or before they can serve this world. And you know how people say, oh, you know, we need to save the world. And yes, we can save the world by serving the world. And to know how to serve the world, you need to learn. And it is learnable. It is a learnable skill. I have a system, but that person needs to know where to go even. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is why I'm here, because I'm a researcher, and I found the things that had been long lost, because I speak 4 languages, as you know. I speak 4 languages, so I read sources that are not even available in English to begin with. And so I could put them together, and I could piece together those techniques that were lost or distorted and bring them back to their ultimate strength. And some of them I actually improved on, so they were even better, I think, than they used to. And those are the techniques I teach people. So, you know, we can live and become stronger, because if we become stronger, then people around us become stronger and happier. And yeah, that's my main reason. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And oh, by the way, do you know what the word Ariya means?
I think you told me before, I don't remember.
It's a Buddhist word meaning a warrior in spirit. A noble warrior in spirit. It was just actually fascinating, because I was meditating one day, well, a while ago now. I was meditating thinking, how do I call my company? How do I call my system? I need a name. And as you know, it's pretty difficult to come up with a name because everything is taken. So I was sitting there meditating, and suddenly this word appeared in my mind, Ariya. And I thought, wow, that sounds nice. I have no idea what this is. So I decided to Google it. And it said, well, it's a Buddhist word meaning someone who is different from others because of his work put into self-development. And so he's different from others because of his work and effort. And I'm like, this is a perfect word. And we don't have it in English, so I just adopted it from Buddhism as it was. Yes.
Jacked it. So I know you talk a lot about meditation. It seems like it's one of your main main beliefs that it's important. For me, I've always had a super active mind. I've always had a really tough time quieting the mind and just chilling. And I've never really been able to do meditation in the kind of classical way that they say, oh, well, okay, just focus on your breath or focus on an object. And when a thought comes, just ignore it. I've never had success with that. I've only ever had success with something else, which isn't even really meditation, and I've talked about it many times before, where it was just me sitting and consciously bringing my consciousness into my heart, opening up my heart and connecting with the divine. And from there, I've had amazing connection experiences, and it's like I bypassed the brain just wasn't even relevant, and I just sat there blissed out like, oh my God, amazing. Interestingly, about 3 days ago, I had an experience. I'm reading Jed McKenna's book, his 3rd book, and I basically was in my apartment, and I just felt this kind of like, I don't know, this weird, like this feeling just come in, and I'm like, okay, I need to sit. And I sit down, and I immediately went into full Zen, no mind, like nothing, like completely not. Like I was literally staring at the wall, and I was just pure consciousness and awareness, and there was no thoughts of any kind, and I was just sitting there. And it's like the feeling was like I took 1,000 modafinil, and you just boom, you're just totally focused. And I was just sitting there, And I was like, okay. And I knew I had to go to a yoga class. So part of my brain was like, get up, go to yoga, but stay in the state. Don't lose the sun. I'm like, okay. So I get up, and Isabel's in the other room, and I knew I couldn't just leave without saying goodbye. So I thought, okay, you have to say goodbye. But I couldn't just normally say goodbye because there was no person. There was no thoughts. There was no ego. There was no person. I was just presence.
Yeah.
So I had to fake like talking. So I had the information on how to talk, but there was no personality, because you don't really, like, because when you talk, you're not just saying things. You're saying it like you would say, hey, see you later, fucker. Like everything you say is there's a person saying it.
Yes.
There was no person. It was trippy. So I came up to her and I just said what I think a person would say, which would be like, okay, bye, I see you later. And she immediately said, you're being weird. And I some part of me thought that was funny. So I laughed and I left. And again, I'm standing at the bus stop and I was like, just blank, just waiting for the bus, but there was nothing going on, absolutely nothing. And then I would feel like a thought coming, and I knew if I focus on the thought, it's going to take me out of this state of nothing. So I just thought, nope, I don't need that. And it was the first time I could just go, nope, no need for thoughts. And I just stood there totally blank, got on the bus, went to yoga. Another guy recognized me, started talking to me. And again, I had to fake being myself because there was no one. There was no one there. So I had a very short conversation. I'm like, yeah, Facebook me. But there was no one there. And eventually, as I went into yoga, and I had to start listening and blah, 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 I kind of went back to normal. But then later that evening, I again tried to go back in, and it was easier that day just again, I would just sit, and it was easier just to drop back into it. So that was my first experience of really just presence, absolutely no mind. But it was very different than, there was no love, there was no heart opening, there was no connection to God, none of that. It was just presence. There was just no mind at all. That was pretty interesting.
Yes. This is what I usually do if I don't need my mind for anything. I tend to switch it off and stay in that pure, really comforting state, because it does feel really good once you're there. And then actually thoughts feel almost too heavy, unnecessary, like less pure, so you don't want them in that state. And yes, usually people build up to that. This is why many people think that they can't meditate, because they're being given descriptions of this kind and they try to do it on their first sitting. It doesn't work, obviously, and maybe they try 2 more times, get disheartened, but it doesn't work that way, because meditation is like a workout for the mind. So you build up to the state where you can hold that awareness with no thoughts. But it doesn't happen on the first time or the second time. It's like if you want to have a six-pack, it doesn't happen on your first visit to the gym, that you suddenly walk out of the gym, oh, it's done, sweet. Same with the mind. You need to work towards it progressively. And that meditation that you were doing is a perfectly valid kind of meditation. Meditation is not sitting there trying to get rid of thoughts. There are so many different kinds of meditation. There is a standing meditation, there is a dancing meditation, there is a walking meditation. So doing yoga is a meditation as well, if done properly. So it's not this idea of, oh, I have to sit cross-legged, and if I can't do it, then I can't do meditation. Choose the type that is good for you. I actually think that dancing meditation and satsang would be really good for you. And it doesn't matter which routine you use to train, as long as you train. And then eventually you build up your mind to the state where it can remain so strong that you can switch it off and just enjoy that pure silence. And you're building towards it. So it's a destination. It's not something to be expected right away. And yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful state. And it also helps you not to waste energy, because we just don't realize just how much energy we waste with thoughts. Insane during the day, just through worries, anxiety, thinking about what was, what is going to be, or possibly going to be, or not going to be. When you just switch off your mind and you remain in that state of pure awareness, it's beautiful. You're just enjoying your life experience. And if you need your mind back, yeah, you can switch it back. But then when you don't need it, it's like, it's like a tool, it's like a pencil. You put it away, you don't walk with it.
That's the distinction. We're so used to this thing always being on, working, thinking all the time. And somebody, so I can't remember who, but basically I read it and I was like, yes, this is right. When the mind when your consciousness is in your heart and the mind is aligned with the heart and it becomes a tool for your heart, then you can wield it as a tool to do great things. But when the mind and the heart are separate, you go mad. I remember now, it was Osho.
Oh.
Surprise, surprise. And it makes perfect sense.
52 minutes.
Yeah. So that's what Osho said. What do you think of that?
Brilliant. Beautiful.
He was the real thing, wasn't he, Osho? He wasn't faking being enlightened. He was legit.
I don't think you can fake being enlightened. I mean, you can copy.
Well, you can try,
else's.
but I don't think it's tough to pull off.
So I think you can fake being enlightened to people who have no idea, because if you are enlightened yourself, or at least you're on the path, because there are different stages of enlightenment. It's not just like a done deal once. It's like, okay, I got enlightened.
For some people, just have a thing and boom, they're done. But for most, I think we have little experiences and we get clearer and clearer, and we just sort of,
It goes, well, there is a path.
Because I've had moments where I was enlightened, for sure. But then guess what? Next day, I'm still an asshole trying to figure stuff out, And I've sat for hours and been on some fucking high level of consciousness, like completely out there. You could ask me shit and things would come out of my mouth that would, you would be like, that's not Sasha. But then, I leave there and I get on a plane, I fly somewhere, and a week later, just a normal dude who had some amazing experiences.
In the Buddhist tradition, you would be called a once returner.
Mm.
It's someone who goes, experiences enlightened consciousness, but then goes back and becomes just a normal guy. And the next stage is, well, even they divided it into different stages. So the next stage is a non-returner. So a non-returner is someone who stays in that enlightened state. So there is no relapse ever. You just stay in that higher consciousness, which I think is a better way of, it's more comforting because you don't have ups and downs, like highs and lows.
I can tell you it's tough once you've been in those states and you come back, like you're always kind of suffering. It's just because I remember how that was absolute bliss, and this is kind of like, this is fine, like I'm having a nice time, but not compared to that. Everything is shit compared to that.
Yeah,
so,
it's like an ultimate upgrade.
It is. So,
but meditation will get you there. This is why meditation is so important. So if you meditate, and it doesn't matter which way, as long as the way is right for you, just do it. If some people do walking meditation, and it's just as valid as sitting cross-legged. It really, really doesn't matter. You can count breath, you can dance, you can walk, but as long as you're training your mind, it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where you become a non-returner. And then you're always enlightened.
So I'm curious, because again, there's once I understood that you can move your consciousness into the heart and become like a heart-based being, where love is your standard default rather than
any
thinking.
of the mind gates. You can move your consciousness to any of the mind gates and become one of them.
Okay, tell me more about that. That's interesting.
Okay, so as you probably know, we have 7 main chakras or mind gates.
So you can move your consciousness to your sex organ, and then what? You just become a sex beast running around, wanting to have?
You could, yeah, absolutely. Because gnosis, that is actually really interesting. So gnosis, people who
that sounds a lot better than Viagra.
Yeah.
Who needs Viagra when you can move your consciousness into your sex chakra and then just be a beast? And then when you're done your feast, just move back to normal.
Well, yeah, but the unfortunate thing is then impedes your mental abilities, because
that explains actually why a lot of people I know are retarded and addicted to sex. Maybe they're living out of that chakra. Maybe they've subconsciously moved it there already and they don't even know it.
Probably, because what happens is, imagine the mind as a motherboard. I know it's a crude parallel, but it's the best we can have. So the mind gates are like your USB ports where you're sending and receiving energy and information. It is possible to move your consciousness to anywhere in the body, including the mind gates. So the heart meditation is essentially meditation on the heart mind gate, and you merge with that energy, become one with it, and you just let it flow. You can do the same thing for any of the mind gates. So you can become, let's say, one with your solar plexus and become one with your purpose and with your willpower and with your, healthy determination, right? And you can stay present with that. Or you can move lower down and be obsessed with pleasures, which sex is the ultimate pleasure, but also food, entertainment, and things like that. And you can notice how people in our society are encouraged to bring all their energy to the lower chakras. And the lower chakras have to do with the mundane existence, and the higher ones, obviously, with enlightenment and spiritual development. So if someone, and unfortunately they can get jumped if we don't look after them properly. So if someone's mind gates get jumped, their mind will be circling around the topic where they got jumped. So for example, some spiritual people, and you will see that, some spiritual people who keep meditating on the heart chakra, they can bring themselves to a state where they can't escape from it. And so the rest of their system suffers because all energy is here and it's too much and it's actually draining for them. So they're always willing to help to the detriment of themselves, which is again not a good thing because there should be a balance, but they can't grab that balance anymore because it's jumped. And same with the sacral mind gate, for example, the orange one. So if it's jumped, you will notice that person not even being able to talk about anything but sex and food. Because their mind, no matter what you start, you say, hey, I watched this film, I don't know, Transformers, whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, Transformers, you can, this sex toys, whatever. And no matter what you try to talk to them about, they will bring that subject to their favorite one because that's all they think about, that's all they care about. And that's the whole existence. So this is why it's so important to have your mind gates clear and healthy, because if any of them get jumped, your experience of life shrinks to that area. And you can notice with some spiritual people, actually the opposite happens. So the third eye is the seat of the inner master, so to speak. So your intellect, your thinking abilities, your analytic abilities, and actually your extended perception. So seeing the auras, for example. Clairvoyance is also that. So if someone brings all the energy down to the lower mind gates, what it does, it takes away from their intellectual abilities, unfortunately. And if you restore the balance, the intellectual abilities actually go up. And I had students who said to me at the beginning, saying, oh, well, I'm not a really clever person. And then towards the end of the training, they have actually become amazingly shrewd. And they were surprised themselves. It's like, how does that happen? How can you even develop? Well, what happened was that the energy went up to their higher mind gates. And suddenly, these mind gates had some fuel to operate. But with the spiritual people who are not taught properly, you can notice the opposite thing happening where their third eye gets jumped open and then they see aliens everywhere. And they're all into all conspiracy theories and they don't even like it, but they can't escape. And they lose the ability to enjoy their life because they're not interested in anything. Nothing brings them joy because joy is the sacral one. So if you take all the energy from that and put it in here, then you keep thinking about all the conspiracy theories in the world, but you just can't enjoy anything really. And it's a sad way of living your life, obviously. So it is important to have a healthy balance and making sure that none of this get jumped, none of this get too open and too closed, and you can enjoy the entirety of your life experience. And enlightenment, by the way, is about the crown. So again, learn to open it properly, not too much, not too little, and you will get enlightened much quicker. There is actually an algorithm. We don't need to wait for it and hope for it to happen. There is an algorithm to train your mind to become enlightened, which is proven, and it does work. So meditate, cleanse your mind gates, and you're pretty much halfway there.
But it's weird because I don't think of enlightenment as a mind thing, because it's not just based on information. It's based on more, isn't it? I think of it as information, but it's how you behave. It's how aligned you are with everything, with your purpose, how you behave in the world, your vibrational frequency, and certain knowledge, and eventually the ultimate, really knowing, not just understanding intellectually, but actually truly understanding that actually we are all that is. And at some point, you just you can. But it doesn't. It's not so. It doesn't seem like it's just a mental thing. It seems like there's much more to it than just...
It's not a mental thing, but it's your mind that enables you to get there. Your mind is a vehicle. So if you build it right, it will get you there faster. And then you don't need it anymore because you've arrived. It's like you don't need your car once you arrived at your destination. You know, you can just send it off, your Uber or your cab or whatever. But once you're getting there, yes, you care what characteristics it's got and how quick it is and how reliable it is, because you want to get to your destination as quickly and as safely as possible. But once you're there, yeah, you don't need it.
I'm pretty excited about getting to that destination.
Yes, it's the best place to be. It is the best place to be.
It's pulling me in. It's funny. I was talking to Henry about this. It's like we're both doing everything we can to go towards enlightenment, but then part of us is still like, oh my God, you know, like because it's the death of self.
Yeah, it's the ego.
It's the death of the ego. Yeah, so it's like exactly. So we're like, oh, I'm not sure, but it's this inevitable pull, and it's this funny question of like, you're probably in some way destined for it either to happen or not, but then in some way you can push it or not. So it's because I know it seems like it's a combination of what the soul has decided before, but actually also what the soul in this body also wants is also
of course
taken into account. So it's this middle road. So it's very, very interesting. But we could go on forever. But this has been excellent. Tell the people how they can contact you and what conditions or what things they might need help with that they should come to you.
So you can find me at ariyamindtraining.com, which is my website, or my YouTube, my Twitter, my Facebook.
I'll put some links always in the
all
description.
Ariya Creed. Yeah, it's my branding is pretty consistent, so you can find me easily. Even Instagram, you can find me there, Ariya Creed. So people I help are seekers and rebels and those who understand that there is more to this reality than you've been told, and you want to actually serve the world greatly. And the only way you can serve the world is that you discover your gift and you discover your powers and learn how to use them. And this is what I teach. So obviously through meditation and also through spiritual practices, some of them are very ancient, I teach people how to become strong so they can stand for themselves and they can protect others as well, because once you know how to fight, you're a really good companion on any adventure. So yes, I invite anyone who is ready to join me for an adventure. Excellent. And she's written a book. Tell them about your book and where they can get it. My latest book is called The Lightwatch Chronicles, and it's a very, very different book because it's more than a fantasy novel. It's like a gateway to a different world. It's essentially, you know how you open a book and then you just jump in and you're in the book and everything happens? Everyone who read the book said that it feels like watching a movie but being inside that movie at the same time. And what it is, it's about finding your purpose, and it's about what kind of mistakes and traps you can expect and avoid when doing it, so you can get there faster, because it's really, really difficult to align with your purpose. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it because it feels amazing, because you unleash your power, you become a real source of light and influence in the world. Who wouldn't want that, right? So if it were easy, everyone would be doing it, and I teach people how to really get there in the quickest time possible and overcome the ego. And this book is actually really, really helpful in that regard, because apart from the teachings, which are obviously valuable and you can use in the real world, it's like Harry Potter with real spells. Imagine reading Harry Potter, but then everything you learn in there you can use in your real world, and it works. It's like that. And also, as Tolkien said, what kind of book it is with no dragons? So it's got dragons, it's got magic, it's got time travel. It starts in Tokyo. I lived in Tokyo, so you can trust my descriptions of that. It's like your free ticket to Tokyo as well. But most importantly, it teaches you to realize your mission in this world, and it teaches you to understand who you really are and why you were born here, and all the techniques that you need on your journey to overcome the shadow are in this book as well. So I sincerely recommend reading it.
Perfect timing.
Nice.
That's good, because that was the perfect way to end. And see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.